Now retired, Michael had a lot of time and money on his hands. He was getting sick of his family and needed something to do. Without thinking a second time, he knew his plan. He was going to visit every town for a vacation. Michael woke up nice and early to start his adventure. He had no time to waste as he was starting his vacation today. Of course though, to make his wife happy, he had to drink his daily green juice. The only way to wash that down was with some whiskey, so he poured himself a glass to drink. After that, he told his family he was heading out and said goodbye to them. He then left his house ready for his grand adventure, hopping in his now ugly car, and he left his house heading to his first location. He was already near the first stop on his list, the city of Los Santos. Obviously, he already lived here, so this was an easy drive for him. For this trip, he was going to act like a tourist though. Michael quickly rolled up on where he would be staying. He would be staying at the famous Gentry Manor Hotel, located right near Vinewood. He parked his car, so it was time to check in. He couldn't wait to see where he'd be staying. After check-in, it was time to see his room. As he walked onto the facility, he noticed a nice pool. He'd definitely be going swimming in this at some point. Of course, he had to take a picture to show his family when he got back. He took a nice selfie by the pool. That would be a good one to show them. He continued on past the pool area to where his room would be, as he was staying in one of these cool villas. He went in his room to go check it out. It was pretty nice, but he had to get some activities going, and of course that pool was calling his name. He forgot his swimsuit though, so he just decided to go in his clothes. It was clearly worth it though. After a dip in the pool, he headed back to his car, where he headed out for his first activity of his vacation. He would be heading to somewhere fun, which involved an activity he had just gotten into, and that was the country club. Michael had been enjoying golf lately, so that's what he was going to do, and this was the perfect place to play. This was the nicest country club in Los Santos, with the best course in the city, and Michael was sure ready to play. He loved getting to drive the golf carts as well. He drove over to his first tee, and of course on the way had to rip a burnout in front of these golf guys. Surprisingly not kicked out yet, it was time for his first hit. The first hole was a straight shot away from him, and he made great contact with the ball. This first one soared pretty far, so he lined up for his second one, which got him pretty close to the hole. Next up was a nice chip shot, bringing him almost all the way, where he was able to just put this thing in for a nice birdie. Michael drove to the next tee, where he continued to hit pretty good. His next one though, he hit it right into a tree, which really messed him up. He came back strong though with a great chip shot, getting it into the green almost by the hole, where he was inches away from putting it into the hole. He was so mad. This one was a bogey. Michael finished his round of golf and then left, where he would drive further into the city for the next part of his Los Santos vacation, shopping. Michael was not a huge fan of shopping, but he realized he was in the best location to do so. So of course he had to check some stores out. Unfortunately, it was now raining though, so he didn't want to spend too much time outside. He went into a couple stores but couldn't find anything so far, so he decided to try only one more, which was a luxury clothes store. He was rich but didn't often like fancy clothes, so he just decided to try some on. After looking at everything once again, he didn't find anything he liked, so he left the store. By now, the sun was starting to set, so Michael headed back to his car and set off to his next activity. He was heading to the core of Vinewood. He quick parked his car and got out to look at the Vinewood Hall of Fame. He was a huge movie fan, so he was surprised he had never actually looked at this before. This was kind of fun actually to see all the names that he recognized, and he hoped one day he would be on here as a movie producer. He saw a poster for the movie he recently helped create, and he saw some cool guys in costumes. He noticed one of them chasing a guy, so he decided to investigate. And well, it's safe to say he was very confused. He found the guy lying on the ground dead. It looked like this guy had just killed him. The costume guy then just ran away. Michael was super confused on what just happened. He then decided this was the perfect time to go see his film again. He always loved seeing his work on the big screen. He was ready to see it again. After getting through the previews, it was time for his own movie, Meltdown. He couldn't believe that his own work helped produce this masterpiece of a movie. He loved watching it every time. After the movie, he was feeling pretty hungry, so we went to his car and headed to a fast food drive-thru where he ordered a quick dinner and ate it in the parking lot. Then he left and took a short ride back to his hotel. He had a long day, so he called it good for now. He walked back over to his room, tempted by the pool again, of course. He called it a night and headed to bed. Michael woke up super early the next morning to not waste any time. He was now off to his next town. The reason he woke up so early was because he had a lot to do there. He only had one day at each place, so he didn't want to waste any of it. And after a short drive, he was already there. On his way though, he noticed a police chase, so he got out of the way. The next town he'd be staying at was Vespucci Beach. He booked a hotel that was right on the water and parked his car. To be fair, this was still a part of Los Santos, but he was going to count this as a separate town. Now before Michael got to any activities at Vespucci Beach, he had to reflect back on Los Santos. How did he like it? What score score was he going to give it? For the hotel he stayed in, Michael gave it a 9 out of 10. For things to do, he gave it an 8 out of 10. For the overall town niceness rating, he gave it a solid 7 out of 10. This gives Los Santos a total score 24 out of 30. After checking into the hotel, Michael could finally explore the beach. His hotel was right on it. He first saw some cool workout equipment super close to his hotel if he wanted to use it. To start his day here, he was just going to walk down the shoreline and see if he could find anything cool. He saw a cool park to his side right by the beach and an awesome outdoor gym. He also noticed a pickup tennis court where he decided he actually wanted to play. He found a random lady to go against and it was game on. Michael served first, and after a couple volleys back, she ended up scoring the point on him. Not a good start for Michael. Once again, she unfortunately scored on him. He was really gonna have to step it up. Finally, he got his chance and actually scored on her. Michael was pumped up. Unfortunately though, the rest of the game didn't go his way and he lost. He rehydrated after his game and he was ready to keep going. As he made his way towards the end of the street, he noticed a bike rental spot. He rented a bike for the day. He chose this green one. Michael was gonna use this to bike all over town, and it was perfect since he found a bike-only path. Of course though, people didn't listen to that. It was super cool to ride next to the beach. He was glad he rented one. He followed the path for a while, looking for something else he could do. Eventually, he came up by his hotel again, and he decided to head on this boardwalk towards the water. Up ahead, he saw something super cool, so he got off his bike, where he saw some jet skis. Michael went over to go see if he could rent one, which he was able to for an hour. He ended up choosing the red one, and as he got on, he could not wait to get this thing going. He revved it up and started to move, and with no hesitation, he let it rip. This was so much fun. He ripped around these waters like it was nothing. The waves were huge today too, so he could get some serious air. He was for sure gonna buy one when he got back home. They had some jumps set up in the water, so Michael wanted to try and hit one. He ended up getting some serious air on this first one. He loved doing these donuts with the jet ski. After that though, his hour was up, so we parked the jet ski back at its spot and he went back to shore. He went to go see if these guys also rode jet skis, but clearly they did not want him there. They pushed him away. Michael ran away because he didn't want to start conflict. That life was behind him now. He was retired. That gave him the perfect opportunity though to go check out what was on this side. He saw these cool telescope things, so he decided to look through them. He did a little stalking, of course, and he saw the pier he'd be going on later and the giant Ferris wheel as well that he wanted to go on. This was his cue to go head over there now. It was time for the famous boardwalk. First things first, he was hungry, so he went to go get some food. He ended up getting some seafood here. After that, it was time to explore the boardwalk. He saw a bunch of cool stores and saw the rides area. He noticed a street performer with a crowd. This was one of those guys that acted like a statue. Of course, he had to get a picture of him and then a selfie to show his family. After that, he decided to go mess with him to see if he'd break character, and of course he actually did, pushing Michael out of the way. Michael decided that was enough, so he decided to walk to the end of the pier, which was pretty far out from land. He walked to the very edge and of course had to look through another telescope. He saw a sailboat far off in the distance and called that enough. He now wanted to ride on the rides, specifically this roller coaster. He noticed a couple other cool ones as well. It was time for the roller coaster. Michael walked up the queue excited as there was zero line as well. He was ready to ride the Leviathan as the roller coaster made its way up the first drop. Once it made it to the top, it was time for the first hill. To be honest, this roller coaster was a lot less exciting than he expected. It was pretty short with a couple drops and hills and some big turns as well, but that was about it. Of course, it still was a little bit fun for Michael. He realized he should take a quick selfie for his family to show him what he did. Next up, it was time for the Ferris wheel. Again, there was zero line. He was excited to get on for a chill ride. He was now on the Ferris wheel, and this was honestly a perfect time since the sun was starting to set. He saw the jet ski area below him where he once was and looked at the sunset. He saw a helicopter in the distance. He was now at the top. The view was awesome. He was glad he went on here. Eventually he got off and was done with the Ferris wheel. After that, Michael went to go look at the sunset as he just chilled out on the pier for a bit. Michael had one less crazy idea up his sleeve though as he jumped off the pier into the water doing a crazy dive. It was barely deep enough though, thankfully he didn't die. As he swam back to shore, he realized how dumb but fun that was. After that, he headed back up the pier and headed to a burger place since he was really hungry. After that, he decided to head back to his hotel, but it wasn't bedtime yet. He had one last exciting thing for the day. This hotel had a rooftop pool overlooking the water. Michael was going to make use of this. This hotel was definitely worth the money. He took a quick dip in the pool and then also went into the hot tub. He had a long drive tomorrow morning though, so he headed to bed. The next morning, Michael checked out of his hotel and started his long drive to the next location. This was going to take Michael a couple of hours, which is why he left early. Michael used this driving time to reflect on his time at Vespucci Beach. Michael rated his hotel 9.5 out of 10 due to its great location and the pool. For things to do, he gave it a 9 out of 10. For the overall town niceness rating, he gave it an 8 out of 10, bringing Vespucci Beach's total 26.5 out of 30. Michael could see the scenery change around him as he neared closer and closer to his location. He had to make a pit stop though really quick to refuel his car at the gas station. After pumping up his car, it was time to keep going. He drove through a tunnel and was now almost there. He was now at his next stop, Paleto Bay. The first stop in Paleto Bay was exciting. He quick parked his car and saw what he'd be doing next. Michael was going to take a cable car all the way up Mount Chiliad. He made sure to take a picture of this one. He took a selfie to show his family later and then headed to the entrance. He had never taken the cable car before, so he was pretty excited. As soon as he got on, it was time to go. Michael looked up at the huge mountain ahead of him. It was crazy he'd be up there shortly. He could already see the town of Paleto Bay that he'd be going to soon, as the cable car started to make good progress. Good thing Michael wasn't scared of heights, because just like that, he was almost there, as he saw the station, and he was now at the top of the mountain. Michael instantly saw the crazy view below him. It was time to head to the very top though. Michael was met with a crazy view, even seeing Los Santos in the distance. He kept going though and finally reached the very top. He noticed some dirt bikes up here and went to go look through this telescope, where he saw Los Santos all the way from here, and he saw the prison, also the town he'd be visiting in a couple of days. It was cool for him to see everything up here. He noticed a crazy looking ramp off in the distance. This thing sure looked sketchy. After ignoring the danger sign, Michael kept walking as he made it to the very edge of this platform. This gave him some major vertigo. He was excited to actually get to Paleto Bay soon. He ran back up the mountain and eyed up these dirt bikes. No one was around, so he hopped on. With his helmet on, he was ready. Michael was ready to rip this thing down the mountain. First up was a crazy drop. Somehow he was able to make it very smoothly. He was now on the trail. He was going to go fast but also be careful at the same time, because he was literally on a giant mountain. All of the sudden though, Michael took this turn a little bit too fast, and just like that, he was off course. He was flying down the mountain, not knowing what to do. Somehow he was still able to remain up and slowly stop the bike. That was a close one. He tried his best to find the trail again, but the mountain was way too steep to get back up. He tried using speed to go back up. Instead, he ran into a tree. This was terrible for Michael, and he was now stuck on the side of the mountain. He recollected himself, thankfully not injured. At this point, the bike was toast. There was no use. Michael realized he was going to have to get out of this one on foot, except the hill was far too steep and he took a bad fall. He continued to roll down the mountain as he couldn't stop himself. Thankfully, eventually he did, where he got right back to running. Except once again, Michael went too fast and slipped down the mountain. This time though, it was much more serious. It was a super steep part. He just continued to roll down and down the mountain, no stop in sight. Eventually he got to a steep cliff and fell right off of it in a huge hit to the ground. Thankfully, he was somehow okay after that and got right back up. He needed a good second after that one. Thankfully, that fall led Michael right to a trail, so hopefully it was going to be safer from here on out. He had no clue where this trail went, but his only hope at this point was to follow it and hopefully it made it to society. It didn't help that the sun was already starting to set as well. Eventually, Michael saw a road up ahead where he was saved when a taxi was somehow able to get to him after calling for one. He was going to take this all the way to Paleto Bay to his hotel. Well, it was a long ride, but Michael had made it. That was definitely a major detour in his trip that he was not expecting. As he was walking to the motel, he noticed something crazy behind him. All of a sudden, a truck was flipped on its side. It looked like there was a police chase happening, and the guy just randomly got out the top. He could not believe his eyes. It didn't help that every truck was now running into this flipped over hazard. This was a wild introduction to Paleto Bay. Michael had enough of today and headed to bed. The motel he stayed at was nothing special last night, but it did its job. There was no pool or anything, unfortunately. Since Michael never got to see the town yesterday, he was going to do that today. He called a taxi really quick, which came pretty quickly. Since he didn't have his car, he was going to find something else for today, which involved heading into town all the way to Los Santos Customs. On his way there, his taxi driver drove straight into a pool. This trip so far couldn't get any weirder at Paleto Bay. The guy kept going like it was nothing. Michael made it to his destination, where he found what he was looking for, a car he could borrow for the day. Don't worry, he told himself he was going to return it when he was done. He used it to head straight downtown, where he just wanted to look at everything. Eventually, he found a place he wanted to stop. He was going to get some breakfast at this bakery. He ended up having a muffin. Then he continued on his way to explore the rest of the town. This time he wanted to explore the coastline neighborhoods, which had decently nice houses. They were okay. Eventually, he whipped off the road into this parking lot to take a look at the beach area. It looked pretty nice, but it was not the best weather for a beach day. He got back in his borrowed car and decided he had enough of touring this town. He headed back to return the car where he got it from. He was ready to move on. Michael called up another taxi because he had to see if he could get back to his car. He had to take the taxi back to that parking lot where he left it. Thankfully, it was not far away. Right as he got there though, he noticed some commotion happening in the background. As he went to go investigate, he noticed a dead body on the ground. This police officer literally just had been killed. He just saw the criminals get away. Since Michael was a former criminal himself, he decided to let it go and not snitch. To Michael's horror though, his car was gone. It must have been towed overnight. There was only one solution to this problem, and Michael knew the answer. He would deal with his car later, but for now, he had to continue the trip. There was a bike rental right here, so that's what he was gonna do. Michael strapped on his helmet and got ready for a long road ride ahead of him. He was ready for this. He crossed the dangerous street and got on his way. Michael had a lot of time to think and reflect, so it was time to grade Paleto Bay. He was going to remain unbiased to the events that happened on this trip.
trip. For the hotel, he gave it 5.5 out of 10. There was no pool or anything like that. For things to do, he gave it a 6 out of 10. For the overall town nicest rating, he gave it a 6.5 out of 10, giving Paleto Bay a total of 18 out of 30. Michael was zooming on his bike as he was able to keep up with some cars. He once again crossed a dangerous road as he was in need of a break. It was perfect he found his diner. After refueling, he left and continued down the highway. He had to go through a tunnel though, and this truck was riding super close behind him. Thankfully, he made it out untouched. He was finally almost there. He was heading to Grapeseed. Now Grapeseed was nothing exciting, primarily a farming town. It did have a little downtown though, which he would be heading to. Michael had never been here before, so it was kind of cool to see. Michael decided to stop at one of the stores, which was a clothes store. He didn't have much in mind for what he wanted, so he just tried on a couple things. He tried on a swimsuit because he forgot one for this trip. He ended up purchasing it. Maybe he could use it at his next location. He hopped back on his bike to look for a hotel. Unfortunately for him, he could not find one. There was no hotel in Grapeseed. He was in desperate need of a place to stay. His only bet was asking some people to crash at their house. Thankfully, the guy was kind enough to let him stay there for the night. Michael just chilled waiting for night. He called it early and headed to bed. Michael woke up early the next morning. He was gonna ditch the bike today though and call a taxi for his last location of the trip. He said goodbye to Grapeseed after barely spending any time here. He was off to his last location. On his way, he thought about Grapeseed's score. Since there was no hotel, he gave his place to stay 3 out of 10. For things to do, he gave it a solid 1 out of 10. For the overall town niceness rating, he gave it 4.5 out of 10, bringing the total for Grapeseed 8.5 out of 30. Michael was now almost at his next location, and he was not excited at all. He was now in the terrible town of Sandy Shores. He was dropped off at the motel, which sure didn't look in business anymore. He was going to check it out regardless though. At least it was going to be a free night tonight. Michael walked into an abandoned room and immediately saw somebody laying on the ground. This sketched Michael out a tiny bit, just for the fact he didn't want anyone coming in at night. He went to go look for another room, except this one was even worse. The ceiling had literally collapsed in this room, leaving a giant hole in the ceiling. This one looked really rough. Michael didn't have a car with him right now, so he was gonna have to run. There were a couple places on the way in that he noticed that he wanted to go check out. First, he went to this Chinese restaurant for some food. After food, he had another idea. He wanted to check out the barber shop. He was gonna get a little trim and a shave, which were good, so he left. Next, he headed across the street over to the convenience store. He browsed around for some snacks and got a couple. After that, he left, where he had a big plan for what was next. He headed over to Trevor's house, and he wasn't home. He noticed this brand new four-wheeler type thing in his yard. He figured Trevor wouldn't mind if he borrowed it for the day, so that's what he was gonna do. It was time for some fun, as he got this thing rolling. It surprisingly had a lot of power to it and was great at burnouts. Michael saw a perfect hill for a jump, and he landed that smoothly. He decided to go for another one, which sent him flying in the air. Michael wanted to head to some trails though, so he left Sandy Shores. He knew a spot to go to. That was Sonora National Park. Located right next to Sandy Shores, they had some trails he could rip on. First though, he saw a rock that could be perfect for a jump. He hit it and somehow survived this one. Very surprising. Next, he found these cool little bumps that were great jumps. And then he attempted a rock crawl. This little four-wheeler was very capable. He decided it was finally time for some trails, as he went through them fast. After that, he wanted to try one last thing. He headed to Trevor's airstrip and went for a drag race. He was able to really get this thing going and push it to its limits. It was so fun. After that, he decided to head back to Sandy Shores to see what else he could do. He decided to head towards the Alamo Sea, which the town was right on. He went as far as he could on this peninsula and hopped off the quad. He was glad he bought a swimsuit. Michael saw an empty boat in the distance, which he swam to. He figured he could also borrow this for the day. Of course, he'd be careful and return it right where he found it, so he was excited to try this thing out. He was glad he borrowed this thing. The Alamo Sea had surprisingly big waves, which made it even more fun to rip around. He decided to stop the boat and put the anchor down. This was a perfect spot to chill. Honestly, Michael thought Sandy Shores was pretty fun. He saw another boat in the water as well. Then he decided to bring this thing back since the sun was starting to set. He made it back to the spot and brought it close to shore. He didn't have to swim that far from here. Michael was now back on shore, and it was going to be dark soon. He decided to head back to the motel to try and find a spot before it got pitch dark. Thankfully, the first room he searched had no people in it, so this was going to be his room for the night. He decided he'd hide out in the bathroom just to be safe. Sandy Shores sure was a weird place. Michael woke up barely having any sleep last night. He was happy it was morning. He decided to leave this place immediately. Like usual, Michael called a taxi, which came right away. Now this was going to be a long ride home. Michael said goodbye to his terrible hotel and Sandy Shores. So what ratings was he going to give it? The hotel was worst by far. He gave it a 1 out of 10. For things to do, there was a lot actually. He gave it 6.5 out of 10. For the overall town niceness rating, this was also low, 2 out of 10, bringing Sandy Shores total to 9.5 out of 30. This meant John's favorite overall was Vespucci Beach, and his least favorite was Grapeseed. Michael had now made it back to his house, and somehow thankfully his car ended up back here. He was happy to be back. He needed a drink after a couple crazy days. Overall, Michael had a crazy adventure.